Portland's premier pop culture event is back at the Oregon Convention Center. Rose City Comic-Con is happening once again from September 11th through the 13th. And this year, they're getting Parker Posey, Alan Tudyk, Patton Oswalt, Brian Michael Bendis, and so many more celebrities and comic creators to come hang out with us here in Portland. Plus, of course, all of the other amazing programming they do every year. Buy your passes today at rosecitycomiccon.com. That's rosecitycomiccon.com. Hello, today on CityCast Portland, we're talking about City Council approving the Moda Center term sheet and what that means heading into negotiations and the wildfire risk within Portland city limits. Plus, Oregon is now home of the last outpost in the world for these two American chains. I'm your host, Claudia Meza, and joining me are Willamette Week City Hall reporter Sophie Peel and wildfire risk expert and principal of McCullough Research, Robert McCullough. Welcome to the show, you guys. How's it going?
Very good.
Good morning, Claudia.
Good morning. Robert, this is your first time with us.
It always has to be a first. I've been on TV hundreds of times, quoted in world papers, but now I've hit the apex.
You really have.
There's no higher position.
There really isn't.
And I agree entirely.
So, Robert, first time on the show, just so you know, we usually start things off with an opening question so any new listeners can get to know our guests a little better. And today's is based on some reporting by the Oregonian. They found out that the Rogue Valley Mall in Medford is home to both Oregon's last Orange Julius and the only Sam Goody store left in the world, meaning that Oregon is now home to the last Blockbuster in the world, which resides in Bend, and now this last Sam Goody in Medford. And Christopher Freeman, the manager of that Sam Goody, said, "People think because we're the last one that we're closing. Actually, we do really well here at this location." He also noted that the anime t-shirts and new vinyl releases are among the store's top sellers. They still sell music and movies as well, but the store carries mostly like pop culture toys and collectibles, which is probably why it's still kicking. All of this bringing me to my question. What chain of yesteryear do you wish you could bring back?
Okay, I'll go first.
All right.
So since I was basically non-sentient in the 90s, I had to outsource this question a little bit. And I was given two things that this person dearly misses. One, Sharper Image. And they told me a story about what they did in Sharper Image, which I simply cannot share. And the second one is Fuddruckers.
Fuddruckers. Okay.
Which I think was hamburgers.
I don't remember a Fuddruckers, but I'm assuming.
You don't know Fuddruckers? Uh-oh. I hope
No.
it's like not in the Midwest where this person is from.
Oh, no, I'm
Let's
sure
see.
it exists.
Okay.
Oh, I can remember Fuddruckers.
Oh, good. Okay. Robert remembers.
There you go.
He was sentient in the 90s.
I was.
What about you, Robert?
So, Sears Roebuck, obviously. Sears Roebuck was a staple of the U.S. economy for 100 years. My wife's father built a Sears Roebuck home when you used to be able to order them to be delivered, and then you nailed them together yourself. And there haven't been a good selection of tools for husbands to browse upon for now a decade, causing to increase in drug addiction and suicide, I suspect.
I would imagine so.
Well, maybe not.
So real quick, I have slightly more information about Fuddruckers. So
Oh, God, of course. Yes,
I Googled
please.
it, and on the Facebook page, Portland Memories, and one person said, "It's the first place I ever tried adding peanut butter to a burger, and it was a revelation."
So Fuddruckers walk so Killer Burger could run, is what I'm hearing?
That's right.
Okay, great. Well, guys, thank you both for your answers. And for that deep research, Sophie, wasn't expecting it. Let's take a quick break here. And when we come back, Sophie is going to tell us what exactly went down during our city council's voting of the Moda Center term sheet. I'd like to introduce you to Stacked Piercing, a new luxury piercing studio in Portland's Alberta Arts District. It's local and woman-owned, welcoming everybody exactly as they are. Stacked is calm and spa-like, so no chaotic vibes, no piercing guns, just expert care in a space built to put you completely at ease. A relaxed atmosphere for ages 8 and up. Custom curated ear and nose looks are their specialty, which are guided every step of the way, and the stack method follows your natural anatomy for placement that lasts and supports your healing long after you leave. They have beautiful, high-quality jewelry for modern mood, Buddha jewelry, and Tawapa, with hundreds of designs meeting the standards of the Association of Professional Piercers, which I've heard in this world is a big deal, so you're walking out day one in your dream piece. And CityCast listeners can take 20% off their first booking at stackedpiercing.com. Just use the code CityCast20. It's for services only. Jewelry is not included. That's stackedpiercing.com. Get ready to loosen that belt because the Portland Mercury's Burger Week is back and beefier than ever. From August 10 through 16, an epic lineup of Portland area establishments will be slinging one-of-a-kind burgers for just $10 each. And vegans and vegetarians, don't worry, they got burgers for you too. We can all big back together. And you guys, I've previewed at least 6 of these burgers already, and they're so good. Map out your burger eating route at portlandburgerweek.com, and this year you can get a cute little burger journal to write all your important burger thoughts at all participating locations. Again, hit up portlandburgerweek.com for all the details. Okay, Sophie, so City Council actually approved the Moda Center term sheet, which moves us to the next phase in negotiations. Tell us how all of that unfolded, because I got to be honest, I'm actually really surprised with how the voting shook out.
Yeah, so Wednesday at City Hall was a really interesting day. So like you said, the City Council did approve a, non-binding term sheet that they're basically going to hand to the city's negotiators when they go negotiate with the Trailblazers in the next 4 or 5 months. So the terms that they approved, 2 really notable ones. One is $3.1 million in annual rent that the Blazers are going to pay to Portland. And the other one is a $3 million annual payment as a property tax offset. So in aggregate, that's $6 million that the Blazers annually will pay to Portland. So that's the sort of the city's starting negotiating position. The split on council yesterday, and it was a pretty interesting discussion, was basically the councilors who voted for this term sheet said, we're scared that if we don't vote on a term sheet, the Blazers are just going to leave the negotiating table. Like everyone thinks that, the new billionaire owner of the Blazers, Tom Dundon, kind of wants an out from Portland. And so if we don't approve a term sheet, that makes it so easy for him to be like, great, Portland doesn't care, I'm out. Why would I even stay? So the councilors who voted for it were like, if we don't approve anything, we're toast, we're done. There's no chance we're going to keep the Blazers. And then the councilors who voted against it made the argument that this is basically a really weak starting position. I mean, with a negotiation, right, you both start with like what you think is the best offer for you, and then you meet in the middle somewhere. So the councilors who voted against it basically said, if all we're asking for is $6 million annually from the Blazers during negotiations, that's probably going to get watered down. So we're going to get even less than that by, the end of the year when we actually have to sign this long-term lease and, sign the deal to give them $120 million for renovation of the arena. So, it's really good points on both sides. I think what is so hard right now is there's this black box of what the Blazers and Dundon actually want. Like, we don't know. We don't know if they really want to stay in Portland. We don't know if they actually really want to leave. Like, without any information from them, I feel like the city council is just sort of shooting in the dark and coming up with theories of, okay, is this a strong starting position? Is this a weak starting position? So we do have a term sheet now. In the next 4 months, the city's negotiators are going to meet with the Blazers and, try to figure out a deal. And I don't think anyone knows how that's going to go. But this is a good first step, I think. It's a foot in the door with the Blazers. They're going to come back to the negotiating table. What happens next, I think, is anyone's guess.
So this is what I do for a living, in energy, not in sports palaces. But the first issue is when you're negotiating with this little information, you're just negotiating with yourself. Mm-hmm. So normally the first thing you would say is we want to set up a deal room. That's where confidential data is exchanged. That's sort of the first button you press in any big dollar negotiation. Secondly, this is a piece of real estate. Normally, I would have responded just by saying, well, give us a year or two while we put it up for sale and we see who buys it. Maybe you'd like to negotiate with someone else better. The reality is that gives a little skin in the game for the counterparty. At the moment, there's a group of inexperienced people in Portland trying to guess things. Probably a pretty poor way to start. But I agree that having a deal sheet is better than not having a deal sheet. But I have to say, it always amazes me how poorly Portland does this. We've worked for most of the I-5 cities, and Portland always seems to be the most off balance. And I'm not sure why that is.
That's a really interesting note, because you've lived in Portland for how long now?
I've lived in Portland since 1968 when I came to Reed College, except for a few years at Cornell in grad school, and then we moved back here.
So you've seen a lot of regime changes in our local government, and you're saying since the 60s, you've just felt like it's been unbalanced in some way.
We did better in the 70s to 2000. But remember, in the 60s, we were going to build 10 superhighways across the city of Portland, which was not a good idea. And but we would have had a lot of cement, which I expect would please someone.
I don't know, I guess cement factories. But Sophie, I want to get into the nitty gritty of who voted, the conversations, because I know you were watching the meeting unfold. So I'm curious, especially how Peacock fractured in a sense.
Yeah, I mean, this has been sort of an interesting side product of this Moda Center discussion, as we've sort of seen a little bit of a crack in the Progressive Caucus, which calls itself Peacock. President Jamie Dunphy, who is part of Peacock, and then Councillor Samir Kanal, who is also a core part of Peacock, they both voted in favor of this term sheet, whereas the other four Peacocks, Councillor Angelita Murillo, Tiffany Koyama Lane, Candace Avalos, and Mitch Green all voted against it. So it ended up being an 8-4 vote. So, pretty strong majority. It wasn't like a 6-6 and then the mayor had to come in and break a tie. It was 8-4. It was super definitive. I think there are reasons why both Kanal and Dunphy voted in favor of this. One, I think, Kanal represents District 2, which is where the Rose Quarter and the Moda are. And
exactly.
I mean, he's not up for re-election this fall, but I think he would have gotten a lot of flack from District 2 voters, both now and in 2 years when he's up for re-election, if he had been seen as someone who kind of was potentially killing the Blazers, and driving them out of town. We don't know if that's actually what would have been the product of us not passing a term sheet, but, that's certainly one of the theories. So I think he was in a really difficult position because his caucus has been against this term sheet. They've been the ones arguing this is a really weak starting negotiating position, but he's also in that district. And it's not just the Moda Center as itself. There's a lot of things happening around the Moda Center too, right? There's all these city-owned parcels that, used to be really strong, Black communities, neighborhoods that the city raised through urban renewal, through construction of I-5. I mean, all these things.
Yeah, all the freeways that Robert was talking about.
Right,
some of those
exactly.
freeways.
Yes, exactly. And so just now the city is sort of trying to redevelop those areas really in partnership with, Black nonprofits, Black developers. And so there's a lot of development and ideas and sort of energy
that's
behind
hinging,
that area.
Essentially.
Yes,
yeah.
It's not just the Moda. But, I mean, I think Councillor Alana Purtle-Ganey made a really good point yesterday when she said, okay, if the Blazers move, we have to figure out what to do with this arena. And if we, don't upgrade it, we're not going to get big music acts here. We might be able to limp along with some random activation events. But, eventually, maybe years, decades down the road, we would have to close it. We might have to demolish it. And she's like, I am not willing to do that to the Black community. I am sure Peacock does not agree with that assessment of that would be a betrayal of the Black community that's trying to rebuild around the Moda Center. But it was sort of an interesting kind of new piece of the puzzle that, I don't think council has really explored yet. And I feel like they're just kind of starting to explore that side.
That's really interesting. Robert actually brought a point up, which I thought was also, I was like, I haven't heard this idea. Or Robert, you just said, they could have just told them well, we'll just sell it. And that's a really interesting strategy because, as you know, Robert, we paid for this for $1. The city took it over, clearly not this council, not this mayor. This was a previous administration's decision. And now they're saddled with like the aftermath of that, having to keep up with this Moda Center, keep up with all of this. Kind of cool that it belongs to the city, but also a big responsibility. And like, let's say the Blazers leave. Let's say all of this happens. Are we able to sell it? Like, could we possibly sell the Moda Center?
Well, the key is to have a negotiating position. We would like to know before we start that we could sell it. It's not hard to sell something. The cost of putting an ad in the New York Times saying Moda Center for sales, send your bids to us, is minimal. It probably costs less than the money we spent debating it on the city council. But we don't have to show those bids to the other side. But we give us a very good sense of what our position is. There's no a priori reason why this venue is only attractive to one person in the entire world. When you go buy a car, do you actually go to several dealerships or just one? We're in the midst of going to just one dealership. That's a pretty innovative idea. You're bound to spend a lot more money for your car that way.
I mean, it is a little more narrow than that for sure, because the Blazers, culturally speaking, mean so much to this town, not only as like a sports team, but also the prestige of having a national brand, of being part of the NBA. I think what our mayor is concerned about is getting kicked while we're down, in a sense. You know, it's clear that Portland is trying to regain its like pre-pandemic glory, economically speaking, culturally speaking, a lot of, you know, just how we were perceived in the world. And then we're clawing our way back and we lose our NBA team. I think it's also just appearances and that narrative that could be then spun of who we are. And like, we know who we are, but I get why it's an advantage to not have to battle that. So I think that's, Robert, I agree with you, but I think that is the reason why they're just so focused on this one buyer, so to speak. But I think it's really interesting, though. Like, yeah, they should have talked to you, Robert. That's a really good strategy. It would have been a really interesting strategy.
But the key is, I'm not talking about actually making the decision to sell it. I'm talking about preparing for negotiation. In a big dollar negotiation, you spend most of your work figuring out what you're going to do beforehand. So my criticism was not of their aims, which I understand, but of their homework. And in working for Seattle, Tacoma, San Francisco, and a number of other cities, there was always a sense of professionalism in issues like this that there has been absent in Portland. And I think the answer to that is very simple. We had the 5-commissioner system, which was just obsolete by management standards. And so we would have commissioners with no knowledge at all suddenly in charge of $500 million enterprises. And now that it's changed, I think we are doing better. There's no question that I think that the mayor is providing a certain focus that we had lacked for the last 20 years.
Well, that's good to hear from someone who's kind of seen things come and go within our local politics. But let's take a quick break here. And when we come back, Robert is going to scare the bejesus out of all of us.
I am, actually.
Okay, so Robert, you are considered a wildfire risk expert, and you've actually been researching what you think is the very real possibility of Portland having like LA style wildfires within city limits. And this is a question we're always asking ourselves, you know, like, is it possible? Can Forest Park be the igniter? You know, this is why a lot of people were upset with Councilor Mitch Green for putting what he said was a controlled fire in his backyard. But like, it really upset a lot of people, myself included, because I was like, what are you doing? So lay it out for us. Like, what are you seeing?
Okay, let's do the global side first. 10 years ago, one of the New York Times reporters called me and said, when are the California wildfires going to hit Oregon? And I said, oh my God, an expert hates it when a journalist knows more than he does. They often do, by the way. The answer is that wildfire risk has expanded. Why is that? It's getting hotter, it's getting drier, it's getting windier. And those three components raise the risk every day. Now, we've always focused on wildfires in rural areas. There's a reason for it. There's a lot more rural area than there is urban area. But that's a mistake because we really don't care about the number of acres as much as we care about the risk to life and property.
It's true.
And the risk to life and property for an urban wildfire is massively greater. So estimates are still being argued about in LA on those two big fires. But we're talking about $25 to $30 billion. Now, we're used to being the richest people in the world, but we're also discovering that we have more global warming risk than almost everyone else. Oregon's up to 2 million acres. We heard on the first, it's higher than that now. Our estimates take Oregon up to 3.9 million acres burned this year. So, number one, global warming is real. Thank you very much for the ninny in the White House that thinks it's all fake news. But number two, its character is changing. It's getting faster, and it's getting more intense, and it's getting more costly. So now let's drill down to urban wildfires. If you really want to be scared, you look to Spokane. Spokane is a third our size. They had a wildfire that started on the first of the month. It moved 5 miles into urban areas in the first day.
Yeah.
So one of our major risk areas, of course, is Forest Park. 5 miles takes you way into Beaverton. But the area that is most important, because we've done the least, is Oak Bottom. That's the area between Ross Island Bridge and the Selwood Bridge.
Yeah,
Why
I can
is
see that.
It's large. It's on the edge of a bluff. The distance between the vegetation and the homes and businesses is literally feet. We do not have surveillance cameras on it. That's a problem because you beat fires at the start, not at the end. So back to Spokane for a moment. They've lost somewhere between 600 and 1,000 structures. Initial insurance company valuation is $600 million. And this was a tiny fire. And this is happening this week. It's not yet complete. Now, that 5 miles in one day would take you from Oaks Bottom all the way out to 82nd's Big Box Row. That's what happened this week in Spokane. So yes, I would recommend being scared. I'm scared and I own a home 0.8 of a mile from it. We are considering changing our roof to metal. Urban wildfires are faster and hotter. In LA, the embers from the fire were igniting asphalt roofs behind the firemen, putting them at risk. They had to retreat so that they would not be cut off and killed. We have a lot of technology, but the technology is siloed in the utilities because the utilities have the most resources, the most technology, the most sophistication. So there are only 2 up-to-date AI-equipped ignition cameras focusing on the city. One is in Vancouver, pointing south at Forest Park. One is all the way at the end of the south end of Forest Park, pointing north. Why do we have 2? Because PG owns them, installs them, and operates them very effectively. Why do we not have them elsewhere? Simply because that level of sophistication hasn't reached the Portland city government or county government or, unfortunately, state government. So what we do at the moment is we wait for the fire to start and then try to catch up. What we need to do is get ahead of the process.
Have you spoken at all to, members of city council or just our current administration on a city level? I'm sure even like people in the county, metro, I'm just curious if you've reached out to them at all.
Absolutely. One of the advantages of having been a respected expert on energy issues for a long time. When I was a child, I was an executive at Portland General, for example.
A child? So I just
When you were a
imagine
child?
I think he means
It
a
was a
young
long
man.
time
And
ago.
10-year-old Robert
Just 10-year-old. Yeah, I can just see it. Just
in a little suit.
I'm still waiting to grow up. I'm told that respect for authority is going to hit me like a hammer one morning, but it seems to have missed. It was left in the box. And so, yes, but to answer your question, I've talked to a wide variety of people. 3 or 4 of the commissioners, I have talked to the mayor. I have talked to both of our senators, to our local U.S. representative. I've talked to Portland Fire and Rescue. I've also talked to PGE. I've talked to the city emergency services department.
Gotcha. It seems like you've spoken to a lot of people, but I'm curious, like, what has the response been? Like, what have you gathered from these conversations?
I've had no contradictions, but I've had the general sense that, nothing new can happen here. If it's not happened before, then we probably don't have to worry about it. That's sort of built into our native programming. As I've noted, in 1941, a brilliant Japanese admiral destroyed much of the Pacific Fleet. Who could have guessed that could have happened? Just because he had spent years in Washington, D.C., knew the U.S. facts perfectly. If we predicted the future well, we would have hired Mr. Yamamoto. But what we did instead was wait till the disaster and then begin to learn. That's getting a bit late for us. We've now had major urban wildfires both to our north and south. We have a lot of reasons why this is a dangerous place. The bluffs along the Willamette, starting all the way down in Oregon City and then going almost all the way up to Swan Island and beyond, are astonishingly dangerous because that vertical area can ignite and move very, very quickly to where lives and property are at risk.
For sure. Well, we got to wrap up soon, Robert, but I'm wondering if, like, within a minute, you could maybe lay out some possible solutions from, like, city level to maybe just how we as Portlanders can empower ourselves. Because I'm hearing it would be great if we had more cameras on these open field areas, these areas that could ignite. Is there anything else? Like, what are your recommendations?
Sure, absolutely. First one is the cameras are not expensive. In fact, I had someone stop me on the street and say, "Can I pay for part of the camera?" Literally. So installing those cameras west side of the river, looking back at the east side of the river, is not really a serious issue. Next part of the high-tech solution is Techno Silva. They are a high-tech consulting firm that puts together risk studies and analytics. We don't have those in hand. In fact, we don't even approach that problem. So those would take us up to sort of the basic intro level of utility analysis. Are either of them expensive considered the level of risk? Our estimate of the cost of a Altadena-style fire using PG numbers is $7 billion for Southeast Portland.
Oof.
Spending $100,000 to help prevent that seems like a pretty good bargain, especially when people are stopping me on the street asking if they can contribute.
Yeah. I mean, it seems like our city council has been very preoccupied with this Moda Center term sheet. Hopefully, maybe this can also be part of the docket soon. I don't know. You should propose it. You should propose it to city council.
Well, I've been in discussions to get a presentation to the city council. I hope that'll come through. I've talked to past city councils many, many times, so it's not as if this would be a new event. However, I know about deadlines, and you're approaching yours, so thank you very much.
That's true. Thank you so much, Robert, for breaking all of that down. We always had like an inkling, like, yeah, that could happen, but we were always giving like such a low percentage, so it's a little sobering to hear from an expert saying, no, it's a lot closer than you would think. So scary, but good to hear, honestly. Well, before we head out, we have some shout outs from members of our Portland Neighbors program. That's like one of the perks of being a paying member of CityCast Portland is you have this opportunity to shout out a local business or organization that you love on top of ad-free listening. And I think right now we have some pennants and some tote bags if you want to hit us up, membership.citycast.fm. But Sophie, you want to kick us off?
Sure. I have one here from listener Ree H, who says, Mount Hood Theater in downtown Gresham. Refurbished old school cinema showing new action, adventure, and family-friendly movies in a cozy atmosphere. Offers all the traditional movie refreshments. Staff is super friendly. It's my favorite theater.
Aw. Well, I have another one here from Cormac B that says, shout out to Brewer's Bread on Northwest Vaughan. Outstanding baked goods, and their breads of the day are amazing. The Fugas, which is, I guess, a French version of focaccia is phenomenal. Fugaz. I'm probably saying that really wrong. Anyhow, and the owners, staff are great folks. Love them. Love having them in my hood. Well, shout out to Ree H and Cormac B, and a special thank you to Christy O, August VN, Kathleen H, Richard Y, Willie L, Lena T, and Aaron G for becoming CityCast Portland neighbors this week. When you join, we'll also be happy to read your shout outs of places that you love in Portland alongside these other perks like ad-free listening and invites to member-only events. Again, you can join at membership.citycast.fm/Portland. Cool. Well, thank you guys for hanging out with me. I know, Sophie, you got to go pretty soon. Robert, it was so wonderful to have you on the show and for you to lay, not only that, but just give us your perspective from being a Portlander for so long. So thank you for taking the time to speak with us. Appreciate you both.
Thank you.
Thank you, Claudia.
That's all for today here on CityCast Portland. Thank you so much for listening. Our production team this week was John Atariani, Julia Fiaioni, Rachel Monahan, Jesse Wiza, Alyssa Castles, and myself. Original music by Jenny Conley and Steven Drizos. Additional music by All the Kimonos. Our ad music is by Sven Lindvall and Sarah the Instrumentalist from Epidemic Sounds via Getty Images. We'll be back Monday morning with more from around the city. Until then, see you at Slim's. Or a Fuddrucker. I don't know. Sophie, a Fuddrucker? A Fuddrucker.
I think it's Fuddruckers, plural, not a Fuddrucker.
Oh, a single Fuddrucker.